Imagine yourself walking along Rome's stone streets under the stern gaze of the Capitoline Hill. On August 31st, 12th AD, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus was born, the son of Germanicus, the army's beloved general, and Agrippina the Elder, direct heiress of Augustus, clad in tiny caligae identical to those of seasoned veterans. The infant earned the nickname Caligula. By age 3, he accompanied his father on campaigns in Germania, living among military camps and expeditions. He absorbed the rituals of war and felt the weight of discipline and violence. These experiences forged in him both extraordinary courage and deep emotional scars. Witnessing battle would haunt his psyche forever. Even as a child, he learned the power of fear and flattery. In Rome, palace intrigue was a silent poison. While Agrippina openly challenged Tiberius in the Senate, Caligula discovered that noble birth offered no protection. Whispers in the palace. Corridors taught him that alliances could die before the sunset. So what happens when childhood traumas, palace conspiracies, and an insatiable thirst for power mix behind the Palatine walls? Entire families were destroyed, the Senate terrorized, and the emperor himself became a symbol of madness. But before we dive into these stories and curiosities of the Roman Empire, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit the bell. That way you won't miss any of our videos on ancient Rome. And now get ready to discover how that tiny booted baby, nicknamed Caligula by the legionaries, sowed the seeds of a reign that would shake Rome's very foundations. The birth of an imperial destiny. On August 31st, 12th AD, beneath Rome's scorching sun, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, the future Caligula, entered the world. Son of Germanicus, the legion's most celebrated general after decisive victories. In Germania and Agrippina the Elder, Augustus's granddaughter, the boy was greeted with libations to Jupiter and the thunder of military standards. Rituals at Jupiter's Capitoline temple and offerings at the Palatine Palace symbolized trust in the Julio-Claudian dynasty's continuity. Before he was 5, Caligula marched alongside his father on the turbulent banks of the Rhine, clad in a miniature lorica segmentata and caligae like the veterans. Amid camps and field operations, he learned military discipline and felt violence's heavy burden. These trials forged uncommon bravery, but left deep emotional scars, marked by farewells and the echo of battle. In Rome, the palace bubbled with conspiracy. While Agrippina confronted Tiberius in the Senate, the young prince learned that noble blood did not guarantee immunity. Whispers among consuls and slave tattles taught him that alliances were fleeting and sometimes fatal. In that environment, every admiring glance from a soldier fueled Caligula's ambition, turning his quest for approval into fuel for his future thirst for power. Historians such as Suetonius and Cassius Dio record the awe Caligula inspired. Coins of the era show Germanicus holding his son's hand. Fragments of these coins, unearthed along the Rhine, attest to the accuracy of these stories and reinforce his legacy. But even a prince beloved by the legions carries scars that can turn glory into terror, and that terror began with Germanicus's death. The death of Germanicus and the rise of intrigue. On October 10th, 19th AD, while Germanicus led troops in Syria, he fell ill suddenly with a severe, mysterious fever. When news of his death reached Rome, profound mourning swept the capital. Courtiers, legionaries and plebeians alike paused in silence to lament the loss of their beloved leader. Agrippina the Elder organized a solemn procession to Augustus's mausoleum. Along the roads, magistrates and citizens offered wreaths of flowers. Suetonius and Cassius Dio describe crowds chanting funerary praises. In Antioch, inscriptions honored his name, and Tacitus mentions local temples dedicated to his memory. Coins from the period bore Germanicus's image alongside his son. Today, fragments of those coins surface along the Rhine, confirming popular devotion. Modern research also recognizes his influence on legionary discipline. The absence of Tiberius and Livia at the funeral fueled rumors. Had Governor Piso acted without imperial approval, driven by personal vendetta? Others accused Sejanus, the Praetorian prefect, of poisoning the general to remove a rival. In the Senate, informers proliferated, and fear spread through the forums and public squares. 7-year-old Caligula watched his world collapse. Guided by his grandmother Antonia, he learned early the dangers of power. The boy, accustomed to marching among standards, now measured every word in the palace, discovering that loyalty in Rome could be as fickle as the Mediterranean breeze. And, while Rome wept for its hero, Agrippina ignited the first spark of rebellion against a power lurking in the shadows. Agrippina and the Silent Rebellion. Returning to Rome around 20 AD, Agrippina emerged as a moral leader, forging alliances with discontented senators and demanding formal investigations in the Curia. In public speeches, she accused Tiberius and Sejanus of Germanicus's death, rallying opposition. Tacitus records letters of support from senators of the Annius and Claudius families, and forum inscriptions bore the names of Purge victims, cementing her role as guardian of justice. Excavations in Pompeii uncovered graffiti praising her courage, showing that her reputation endured for centuries. In retaliation, Sejanus deployed the Praetorian Guard and informers to incriminate Agrippina's allies. Nero was accused of conspiracy and exiled, and numerous senators faced charges of treason, many banished or executed. Archaeologists have found bronze tablets bearing Sejanus's exile decrees, and modern scholars compare these purges to later political cleansings, noting patterns of power abuse. In 2024, new discoveries in Rome revealed votive inscriptions to Agrippina, attesting to her political clout. For 7-year-old Caligula, these purges were practical lessons in peril. Suetonius says he watched Senate meetings intently, reading betrayal in every glance before mastering oratory. Once accustomed to parading among military standards, he learned early that in Rome, truth could be as volatile as an emperor's promises. But behind the palace curtains, Sejanus wove a web of intrigue, and no one, not even a young prince, would escape unscathed. Sejanus, the phantom of the palace. As Tiberius grew ever more reclusive on Capri's opulent shores, Lucius Aelius Sejanus seized Rome's reins. Where the emperor's voice once echoed, private altars now honored the Praetorian prefect. Archaeological findings confirm annual festivals in his name. Sejanus ruled remotely, commanded the Senate by messenger, and ran an extensive spy network that intercepted patrician correspondence and plotted conspiracies. Young Caligula, stranded among ambitious courtiers, absorbed betrayal's lessons. Suetonius reports that he watched secret palace rites, realizing that the Praetorian Guard, once the emperor's shield, had become Sejanus's instrument of political blackmail. In 23 AD, Drusus Caesar, Tiberius's son, died of mysterious poisoning. Dio Cassius suggests Sejanus exploited the emperor's absence to eliminate opponents. Thereafter, Agrippina and her children were declared public enemies. Nero died in exile, and Antonia the Younger endured humiliations until her final days. Clay tablets unearthed in 2022 bore Sejanus's decrees appointing loyalists, proof of his parallel government. Fear silenced the populace. Herculaneum fragments record secret arrest orders and summary executions, while the Senate appeared powerless under the prefect's absolute control. When Sejanus's masks finally fell, the way was clear for an heir thirsty for justice and vengeance. The Great Purge and the heir's survival. In 31 AD, after reports of treason, Sejanus was arrested on Tiberius's orders and executed in public. Rome breathed relief as the shadow that had oppressed the Senate and imperial courts vanished. Agrippina returned triumphantly, accompanied by her children, including 19-year-old Caligula. Shortly after, Caligula was appointed quaestor and placed under the tutelage of Marcus Sutorius Macro, the new Praetorian prefect. Macro, loyal and seasoned, guided the prince through the corridors of power, turning childhood lessons of betrayal into political strategy and securing his favor with the legions. While Agrippina regained influence in the Senate, Caligula won the soldiers' and citizens' admiration with eloquent speeches and generous gifts. Coins struck in 37 AD bore his image, signaling renewed hope for the dynasty. Yet ancient shadows still lingered over the Palatine Palace, a reminder that Roman power was fragile. Modern research brought new evidence. In 2018, a military diploma found at Misenum, dated March 28, 37 AD, confirmed Caligula's acclamation by the Praetorians. Tiberius reports that the prince doubled the guards' pay, solidifying their loyalty and boosting his prestige. In March 37th, a single whisper among legionaries became a banner of change, propelling Caligula from obscurity to the imperial throne. Have you ever wondered how that moment reshaped an empire's destiny? Leave a like now and help us keep bringing you stories like this. The lightning rise to the throne. On March 16th, 37 AD, Tiberius was found dead on Capri. Rumor claims Caligula smothered him with a pillow that fateful night. From Misenum, the Praetorian Guard proclaimed the young prince emperor, crowning him amid cheers and promises of renewal. Returning to Rome on March 28th, Caligula was met with colossal celebrations. Citizens and legionaries alike hailed the heir who would honor Germanicus's name, distributing generous bonuses to troops and commoners. Tacitus notes that dozens of cities erected triumphal arches in his honor. By his side, Macro guided every gesture, ensuring the new emperor performed the traditional ceremonies and greeted the populace from the Palatine. The Senate, wary but cautious, ratified his succession and paid homage to Germanicus. Documents unearthed in 2021 at the Vatican archives confirm Senatus Consulta, restoring the family's rights and privileges. Modern studies suggest these decrees also cast Caligula as guardian of republican traditions, though beneath the veneer of generosity lay a mind closing in paranoia. In 2019, linen fragments discovered in Capri are studied as possible remnants of the pillow that killed Tiberius. But under the bright lights of acclaim, a shadow took shape, ready to swallow Rome's optimism whole. Faltering health and the seed of paranoia. Shortly after his accession, Caligula was struck by a violent fever, suffering convulsions and delirium, as Suetonius recounts. Rome united in prayer, while palace physicians applied poultices. Modern studies point to cerebral malaria, exacerbating his mental instability. Inscriptions from the sanctuary of Aesculapius, discovered in 2021, document medicinal herbs used in his treatment. Coins minted at the time bore distorted effigies, reflecting widespread fear and uncertainty. When he emerged from illness, the emperor exuded a visceral distrust, as though every glance concealed poison. His earlier generosity gave way to suspicion. Every Senate debate, every smile from Macro felt like a trap. Rumors said he surrounded himself with a small circle of loyal Praetorians, shutting out old allies. Decrees in the Capri archives show augmented palace guards, while austere graffiti begged for protection from betrayers. Fragments of parchment found on the Palatine in 2023 reveal orders to spy on senators, reinforcing the climate of mistrust. That silent fear turned into sentences. Friendships became betrayals, and the Palatine Palace echoed with the clink of blades and whispered accusations. In Herculaneum, carbonized manuscripts recovered in 2022 list prisoners executed by imperial order. Letters in the palace attest to absolute terror among the Praetorian Guard, and Ammianus Marcellinus speaks of steel-shod footsteps in the night chambers, cementing an atmosphere of dread. And what began as paranoia would become a storm of steel, a new chapter of terror in Rome. Purges and the ruin of rivals. The list of accused grew mercilessly. Tiberius Gemellus, his co-heir, was forced to commit suicide in 38 AD. Silanus, a powerful senator, was executed on charges of conspiracy. Even Macro, his former mentor, paid, with his life on suspicion of treason. The Senate, cowed, became a silent accomplice, enacting swift punishments and silencing dissent. In 2021, inscriptions from Ostia's Temple of Isis document mass confiscations, revealing the true scale of the Purges. In Rome's public squares, people whispered about show trials with puppet judges and fabricated witnesses. Temples, once places of refuge, hosted processions of fear as aristocrats exchanged wary glances, afraid to be the next name wiped from bronze tablets. Graffiti unearthed in Pompeii in 2020 records funeral chants denouncing injustices. In 2023, British museum archaeologists analysed Pompeian wheat paste posters that cited summary trials, spreading panic. Amid this climate of distrust, Caligula declared himself a living god, demanding that everyone worship him with offerings and sacrifices. Madness, fueled by absolute power, erupted in cruel spectacles. Banquets where prisoners were thrown to wild beasts, torchlit nighttime parades accompanied by hymns in his honor. Historian Mary Beard argues that these public displays served as sordid propaganda, marking a point of no return. In 2024, Revisita Medos. When fear reigned, madness would take flight in performances that defied all reason. Madness, deities, and shells. To prove his divinity to the world, Caligula paraded as living statues of Jupiter, Mercury, and Hercules, donning ceremonial robes and laurel crowns before stunned senators and commoners. He even decreed that his favorite horse, Incitatus, be appointed consul, an open mockery of the Senate and a warning that anyone could be made ridiculous at the emperor's whim. In a symbolic campaign on the shores of Britannia, he ordered legionaries to gather seashells as military trophies, turning the beach into an absurd archive of decorative shells with no strategic value. Excavations in Londinium in 2019 uncovered piles of shells in defensive ditches, corroborating Dio Cassius's bizarre account. In Jerusalem, according to Flavius Josephus, Caligula planned to erect his own statue in the temple, threatening death to anyone who refused to acknowledge his divinity. The Jewish community breathed a sigh of relief only when news of his death reached them before the statue arrived, averting a religious bloodbath. Archaeological digs at Capernaum identified carved limestone blocks that may have been intended for the statue's base. Meanwhile, Rome's international prestige, once the envy of all, was stained by a ruler who conflated grandeur with insanity. Coins struck during this period were the last to feature military motifs before giving way to images of personal cult and extreme adulation. In 2022, British archaeologists revealed shell mosaics in Bath, suggesting a makeshift cult of Caligula. Historians like Mary Beard view these acts as dark propaganda that corroded Republican tradition. But neither shells nor deities could silence the cry for justice, and the Guard readied its final strike. The tragic end and the rise of Claudius. In January 41 AD, officers led by Cassius Chaerea plotted Caligula's overthrow. In the palace corridors, the emperor was stabbed repeatedly, while his wife, Caesonia, and their infant daughter were killed, to eliminate any heirs. The terror he had sown turned its blade on him. Amid the chaos, soldiers discovered his uncle, Tiberius Claudius Caesar, trembling behind a curtain. Despite his timidity and physical infirmities, Claudius was lifted onto a shield and proclaimed emperor. Ridiculed in life, he now symbolized the Julio-Claudian dynasty's unexpected continuity. Rome, which had once celebrated the young general, was plunged into mourning and reflection. Suetonius and Tacitus debate Caligula's legacy. His cruelty and eccentricity proved that unchecked power is the quickest path to ruin. 21st century documents, translated in the Villa dei Papiri archives, reinforce the image of a reign marked by fear and instability. If you enjoyed this journey through time and want more fascinating stories, subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and share this video with your friends. You'll help us keep bringing quality historical content. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video on ancient Rome and its grand empire.